and also the President Executive Director of the Asian Pacific American Leadership Foundation, to speak of the growing coalition and amazing work that different organizations throughout the country are doing to bolster Asian representation, especially in the political sphere. And as somebody that is now becoming more comfortable and owning the space that I get the privilege of existing in, I wanted to share that we are also, I will be a founding member of the AAPI Lead, the first national organization for electeds by electeds, to empower Asian leaders to step into elected office. And I will actually be attending their first convening later this week. I also really wanted to repeat some of the themes that I had shared over the last month that many of my council colleagues have shared too, and also Chief Everett, around public safety and our commitment to it in our community. After the Public Safety Forum that was held on May 28th, I am now, along with our mayor, a part of the East Bay Regional Public Safety Partnership that is organized by Mayor Ergin and Councilmember Trevor Reed in Oakland, along with many others. And it was a really robust conversation about collaborations between cities, different jurisdictions, as well as agencies working together for real solutions that will truly help us be responsible and increase safety.
Are there any other announcements? I think Councilmember Aguilar online. Yes, Councilmember Aguilar, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. Just to catch up, I attended the May 8th, Wednesday, May 8th, 1125th Alameda County Mosquito Abatement Meeting. We welcomed our new trustee, Lisa Rassler, from the city of Oakland. She replaced Jan Washburn, who passed away. We approved our budget for the 2024 through 2025 year, and we were presented with the engineering board's report. We passed resolution 1125-1, intending to continue assessments for the fiscal year 2024-2025, and also resolution 1125-2, approving the Hayward Area Shoreline Planning Agency Joint Powers Authority Agreement, joining as a trustee agency. This is called HAPSA JPA. And then on June 12th, I also attended the 1126th meeting of the Alameda County Mosquito Abatement. We welcomed Council Member John Bowders from Emeryville. He replaced Courtney Welch, who took over the mayorship of that city and stepped down, and she was replaced. We were presented with our OPEB report. The good news is the trust is fully funded, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will go to Councilmember Blue next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief report, and it has to do with calendar. I apologize. As you know, I'm in Alaska on a cruise, and they changed the itinerary. The all on board has to be earlier now, so I may not make the entirety of this meeting, but I should be here at least until 7:30 your time. That's my announcement.
Thank you. So on my end, I will quickly highlight a few meetings. Ava Community Energy, that's the default energy provider for the city of San Leandro. And for Ava Community Energy, I served on the CEO ad hoc search committee. We appointed Howard Chang as the new CEO of Ava Community Energy, replacing Nick Chassett, who is moving on to other areas of interest. Howard brings deep experience not only in the acquisition of power, which is the primary risk and challenge facing Ava Community Energy, but also brings experience of building out projects. And one of the strategic questions facing the energy is, should they build power projects in addition to buying in the spot market? Had the opportunity to attend the Leadership San Leandro graduation event last week. Very powerful event, and it's pretty neat that the city has actively participated. This year we had 4 participants in Leadership San Leandro. And so it was neat to see folks at the city continuing their growth professionally, and particularly because I had met each one of them before. So it's just kind of nice to see people continuing to grow. Have spent some time at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District where I serve on the board of directors. One of the things that we're focused on at BACMed is monitoring the use of funds that are collected through the registration, through the permitting, licensing processes to make sure that there's a connection between the service, the timeliness of service that's provided by the Air Quality Management District, and providing greater transparency. One of the things that came out of our board retreat was metrics, and how to make sure that we're driving that efficiency, but at the same time recognizing the importance of environmental justice. And so marrying the two, not only just saying metrics for the purpose of efficiency, but guiding where the money is being spent, and in particular, making sure that environmental justice objectives are met. And the last thing that I will highlight is time that I've spent with the San Leandro Unified School District over the last month. Two events, obviously spent time at the graduation. It's always neat to see high school students making that transition to that next step in life, and the excitement that they bring, the energy that they bring. And, just seeing students that I have known over the years in various capacities reaching that point. But really starting over with the freshmen, what are called freshman interviews. A number of people from the city participated. An Assistant City Manager Cameron was there, Lieutenant Tang was there. I know others were there. They were the two that I saw personally because we were there at the same time. And I'm grateful for the collaboration between the city and the schools as we continue to build that relationship. I saw a number of officers supporting the graduation. So thank you for the support that you offered there. And I heard lots of compliments from the school district around some of the creativity that was employed in our efforts to support them in their graduation. So thank you to all for their service. At this point in time, Vice Mayor, I'm coming to you.
Thank you. I wanted to give an update. I attended the Alameda County Mayor's Conference and backing up for Mayor Juan Gonzalez. Janelle Cameron was present as well. There was a very good presentation by Fong Lau, the assessor for Alameda County. It was a really good presentation on an update on the county assessor's office. And one key point I wanted to share that I took away was just how the cities really bring in the money from a tax assessor standpoint. And looking at some of the cities in the South Bay, such as Fremont, with Tesla, and the amount of equipment that is housed in those buildings, almost $24 billion worth of equipment are in a Tesla factory. And Newark has Lucid Air and other auto industries, or even biotech companies. But how they assess the taxes is based upon the equipment that's used to manufacture the equipment in that building. Whereas a lot of San Leandro is warehouses, Amazon, where you just store things that go out. And the value of the tax is based only on the building, not what's inside of it. So that just shows how some of these other cities are bringing in a lot of money because of the type of industry that is in their city. Whereas we are a traditional warehouse, and I'm glad that our city is looking at more biotech and other type of tech or biotech related work rather than just storing things. So I just wanted to share with that. That's a really good comparison on how cities really bring in the money for their constituents. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to continue with our agenda back in the standard order. So we're going to go to the consent calendar at this point in time. Are there any council members who would like to pull something from the consent calendar and or move the consent calendar? Councilmember Azevedo.
Yes, I'd like to pull 5Q.
Okay, so I have a request to pull 5Q. Councilmember Bowen.
Yes, I would like to pull 5A.
We have a request to pull 5A. Okay, seeing none other, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 5A and 5Q?
I can't leave the queue, but I'll move.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Bowen. Vice Mayor, please.
Second.
I have a second from Vice Mayor Simon. At this point in time, what I'd like to do is take public comment on the consent calendar. If we've got any public comment.
There's one public comment online. We have none in person.
Okay, let's take the online comment, please.
Karen Fernandez, you may unmute yourself. Karen? Mr. Mayor, I don't believe her microphone is working. I don't see any movement.
So we see that you've gone unmuted, but we cannot hear you in the chamber. We do see your hand, Ms. Fernandez. And from our perspective, she's unmuted, correct?
That is correct.
So what we will have you do is, you can email us your thoughts. You can feel free to give us a call. Do we have any other public commenters on the consent calendar? And then we'll get to general public comment a little bit later.
No, there's no further public comment.
Okay, so at this point in time, I'm going to close public comment and move back to council members. If there's any discussion on the consent calendar motion other than 5A and 5Q. Okay, seeing none, we're gonna, I'm calling the question. Let's please vote.
Councilmember Aguilar, your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Baloo.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilar, yes. Councilmember Azevedo, yes. Councilmember Baloo, yes. Councilmember Bowen, yes. Vice Mayor Simon, yes. And Mayor Gonzalez, yes. Motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Viveros Walton absent.
At this point in time, we will move to the first item that was pulled, which is 5Q. So I will go to Councilmember Aguilar. I'm sorry, Azevedo, my apologies. The other A name.
Yes, with 5Q, there wasn't a staff report with it. So I would like to find out some information about why we're going to go from 186,122 to not exceed 1,200,422. Can you give us some detail on that for the community?
So I'm going to go to the city manager first to clarify the difference between the increase, which is I think 186, and the not to exceed. Because I think it was probably already authorized for around 900 and something thousand, correct? Does that sound right?
Mayor, I'm actually gonna defer to the city attorney because this is his budget. And he's going to be able to explain, this is more accounting transfer and not an increase in budget.
Perfect, thank you. City attorney.
Thank you, City Manager. I see that City Finance Director Mike Yuen is here to answer that question.
It's ready.
Okay, so we got the accountants lined up. Okay, here we go.
Okay, good evening, and thank you, Mayor and council members. What we are seeking here is to increase the not to exceed on the contract from a little under $1.1 million to $1.2 million. So the contract was there. The total budget, it's important to note, that has been budgeted for legal services is $1.2 million. So this brings the not to exceed to that same level, and the funds are already present to fund that amendment.
Is there any additional follow-up there? From other council members, is there additional follow-up? Seeing that, I will ask a question right there. So for 23-24, the budget is 1.2.
Yes, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay. And the adjustment is because our council approved amount had not been the full 1.2. on kind of, I'll call it a line item basis.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. So this just takes us to what we've already budgeted for.
Yes.
So are there any other questions on 5Q? Online, I don't see any. So at this point in time, I will accept a motion to move this item forward. Councilmember Bowen? Okay, I've got a motion from Bowen. Vice Mayor?
Second.
I've got a second from Vice Mayor. Please vote.
Vice Mayor, can you vote, please? Councilmember Aguilar?
Aye.
Councilmember Baloo?
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilar, yes. Councilmember Azevedo, yes. Councilmember Baloo, yes. Councilmember Bowen, yes. Vice Mayor Simon, yes. Mayor Gonzalez, yes. Motion passes 6-0 with Councilmember Viveros Walton absent.
Perfect. At this point in time, we will move on to item 5A for discussion. So I'll begin with Councilmember Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. Similarly to Councilmember Azevedo, the staff report that was given during rules at the May 22nd meeting had a lot of really great information, and I want to make sure that we could share that. I don't want us approving this motion to no action regarding declaring a state of emergency on homelessness in San Leandro to give anybody the idea that we do not care or understand that it is at a critical juncture and we are actively engaging in ways to address it in the city. So I really want to give an opportunity for city staff to speak to some information around that, and then also update on, if you can, just briefly on our homelessness response efforts.
Yeah, and sitting on Rules Committee also give a little bit of color because during Rules, there was an extensive discussion about the fact that this is purely a county issue, that county needed to take certain actions to free up themselves from some of the bureaucracy that they face. That's not in any way impacting us, and we're out there doing lots of things. In fact, we made it a city council priority to focus on homelessness in our city. But with that being said, I will pass it to city manager, who can pass it to others.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. If I could invite Director Jessica Lobaden up, our Human Services Director, she can give you a brief overview of what's happening in the city.
Great. Thank you, City Manager and Council Member, for this question. As the Mayor did reference, the focus of the countywide emergency declaration is really intended to expedite internal county hiring and procurement procedures. So to declare a local state of emergency would not have that similar impact for the city. Staff have provided the guidance to the county that if there is a justified benefit for cities to declare local states of emergencies, we will certainly explore that. Some of the efforts that staff have been focusing on at this time include continuing to work on opening up the Llewellyn Interim Housing and Drop-In Center. The anticipated open date for that project is December of 2024. We just concluded the winter warming shelter program in April, which served a total of 55 individuals over a course of several months. We are working with our partner departments on prioritizing and setting up the protocol for encampment response efforts and deploying outreach to different encampments to connect people to services. We are working with Alameda County Fire on developing the alternative response unit or the mental health response unit, as well as expanding the safety ambassador program in downtown San Leandro to the Greenhouse Marketplace area. Additionally, staff do administer several contracts for the nonprofit homeless services in the community, including shelter services, outreach services, basic needs services, and work with the county on setting up the recent point in time count, which we just received our preliminary early data from. but we'll receive full report later in the summer.
And the only other thought that I will add is that I know that Director Lobadan and I both sit on the Alameda Mayor's Conference Working Group on Homelessness. There's an indication of our city's commitment to working proactively through any of a variety of challenges and prioritizations. And the conference developed a prioritization matrix. I think that might be coming at some point for us to discuss and or approve for adoption here in our own city. But I think there's still a bit of work to be done before that happens.
Thank you,
There's
Mayor.
extensive commitment. I see no other hands on lines. Is there any other discussion on this item? I've got Councilmember Aguilar right now. I'll come back to
Yeah.
you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, with regards to putting this forth on October 16th, and Jessica, thank you for that, for the robustness with regards to, the process. I think, to advocate for this is to try to eliminate the bureaucracy with regards to, trying to address the homeless issue with regards to housing. And I think that, it's been some time to put forth this navigation center. I think, this doesn't happen overnight. And I think advocating for this was to help eliminate and to say, hey, if we need housing, we can move forward with making sure that we're able to garner that housing and support for those that are in need. And I think, with the eviction moratorium, there was more concern around this because there are mass evictions happening throughout the entire county and state. So, I respect the report that has been prepared, and I just, wanted to kind of color some perception around what this advocacy was, why this was put forth, and the reason behind it was to help eliminate the red tape and bureaucracy to expedite the need for housing in San Leandro with regards to tiny homes.
Okay, so thank you for those comments. I'm coming back to Councilmember Bowen. Oops, I punched you twice. Just turn the mic on.
Mic is on. Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Aguilar's comments made me think of a few things. I appreciate his effort to want to remove barriers to housing in our community. Obviously, in this particular case, this resolution didn't necessarily apply to us, is my understanding. What I wanted to offer is if there are other challenges that you are seeing that you're obviously talking in the working group as well. I'm sure there's a lot of different bills that are out there. One of them that I was actually looking into today, thanks to feedback from the community, was a bill 1395 around shelters, like a shelter crisis. I don't know if this is a conversation I'm sure you all already having in order to remove some of the barriers or challenges to building tiny homes and other low barrier navigation centers. If that is something that can be uplifted so that the council is aware of and can support in some capacity, if that is a barrier for building tiny homes, please, I encourage staff to, in the limited time that you have, to explore and then to let us know so that we can support that.
So before moving on, I'd like to recognize that Councilmember Viveros Walton has joined us and needs to make an announcement. Do you have that announcement handy, Councilmember?
I did have it a minute ago. Give me just 30 seconds. Okay, I'm ready.
Please proceed.
Good evening. Under the California Government Code Section 54953, I am notifying the council of my need to participate in tonight's meeting remotely for just cause because of a family child care need. I appreciate the flexibility. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. So at this point in time, we've had discussion on 5A. Do I have a motion to go ahead and proceed with 5A, given the current state of affairs? Councilmember Bowen. Got a motion from Bowen. Just move us along. I'll second. Please vote.
Councilmember Aguilar,
No.
Councilmember Baloo,
Aye.
Councilmember Viveros Walton,
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilar, no. Councilmember Azevedo, no. Sorry, there's a lot of dots I have to read. Councilmember Aguilar, no. Councilmember Azevedo, no. Councilmember Baloo, yes. Councilmember Bowen, yes. Councilmember Viveros Walton, yes. Vice Mayor Simon, yes. And Mayor Gonzalez, yes. Motion passes 5-2 with Councilmembers Azevedo and Aguilar voting no.
Okay, so let's move to item number 6. I know that today we don't have a report from city attorney, but I'll turn to city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and community members and employees. I just want to take this opportunity. This is my last council meeting as your city manager. And genuinely thank those who trusted me to lead you over the last 3.5 years, both to the employees, community partners, and community members. We accomplished many things that I'm proud of all of us for. I had to make a lot of tough decisions, complex decisions, and sometimes unpopular ones. But I believe that we together have built an even stronger foundation post-pandemic for this community of San Leandro. I think this foundation is going to support the future growth and citywide economic development to really take the city very, very far in a positive direction over the next several decades. I will dearly miss this city, and I have made so many friends that I plan to keep in touch with forever. So thank you again for this experience and trusting me.
And we will take the opportunity to roast you a little bit later. Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to move to item number 7, which is general public comment. This is a time where people in the community can address, anybody in the community, any person can address the council on matters that are not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Madam Clerk, would you please provide 2 minutes for any public commenters?
I will. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have 3 public commenters in person and none online.
Let us proceed.
Charles Go,
Good evening, City Council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Charles Go, and I live on Harlan Street in downtown San Leandro. And I'm here to make a comment on the council operations. I haven't been here attending a lot. I'm pretty new, but I have a few really requests that would really, I think, help the operations. First thing is, a request on agenda items, a request on staff report. You have resolutions such as all the consent calendar. However, there is nothing on background. The reasons, recommendations that the staff got there, research like the homelessness issue, which was provided just now. Maybe even questions of what does the data say? A discussion that went into it, fiscal impact, what are the metrics? How do you know that when you put that money in there, it's working? And I would ask this group to look at the city of Hayward. They have a staff report for every single agenda item. Similar to that, I would ask this group to think about a city budget process that is more balanced and transparent. Our current budget is about 19 point something million in the red, right? There's a deficit there. Look at the city of Hayward. Again, they have a budget goal, metrics. How does it help? What is their goal? And by the way, their projected is 5 million plus. I have 7 seconds. Last thing is conflict of interest. what does this look like? If I were to gain, like in the May 20th meeting, if my name is
Your
on
time
it,
is up.
Just chat with us afterwards. Chat with us afterwards so that we can get your third point.
John Dykesel.
Good evening, council members. First of all, I want to thank County Clerk Kelly for helping me. On the June 3rd, I sent these out. You should have got a copy of them with an email addressed to me and to everybody else. We have a problem with our pesky neighbor and code enforcement parking 61400 and another violation of generator that he's constantly putting on at various times of the day. Code enforcement 41105 and health and safety and welfare of the neighborhood, which I addressed the last time because of reckless driving. And that code enforcement is 318-100. I still am trying to find a resolve for that. I'm a little disappointed I haven't heard more. I know there were 2 members on the city council that were going to address it, but unfortunately you had a long agenda on June the 3rd, so I apologize I did not stick around for that. But I need some help with it because we have some electronic devices that are being jammed. I'm doing my best and wasting a lot of time, my bride and I, trying to find a resolve to get it unclogged. Still working on it. I would appreciate any input, and if you still have my email address, I'd appreciate some address. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Neil Knowles.
Good evening, all. This is about that pesky neighbor at 881 St. Mary Avenue. I am a neighbor next to him. Continue harassment. I walk out my front door, I'm under surveillance. There's 6 cameras in his cars. I'd say a good half dozen around his house. Walk in my backyard, I'm under surveillance. My wife does not feel comfortable laying out in the sun in our backyard. He's listening to our conversations. I've got a little packet here. I printed out for each member here. The first 2 pages are how many times the police have been called to this address. I'm looking at 40. That was up to 2 weeks ago. I don't know what the current is, but I imagine it's another half a dozen times. Anybody that drives down that street is harassed. We had a citywide garage sale. We live at the end of the street, St. Mary Avenue. He harassed everybody that showed up that day. It's wrong. Something needs to be done. I have some photos here. It was at one time, it was lit up like Times Square. Mike Jeffrey went and approached the owner of that house. He toned on the lights. The last 3 pages of this is my backyard. It's lit up every day, 7 days a week. Kind of uncomfortable. It goes into my bedroom window. This is basically taking part of my life away. I mean, it's just I focus on this all the time. It's not healthy. I'm not the only neighbor. John, we have Kathy and Robert and Omar at the end of the street. We're looking for help, folks. So thank you for your time. Could I pass these out to everybody? Can I approach? Okay. I have a minute. Real quick here.
Seconds.
The 3rd letter in here is from my real estate agent. It's called a disclosure. We have to disclose all this, and that's not going to be good on the price of my house. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, there is no more public comment.
Okay, so at this point in time, I do want to thank our public speakers for coming to visit us and for sharing this information. And I think if I remember correctly, there was a connection, or there was a plan to connect the pesky neighbor folks with the police department to just kind of dig in a little bit more. I do want to go back to this notion of transparency of the budget process. Because one of the things that we have done as a city is had multiple budget meetings at the start of our biannual budgeting process. And so I'm not going to, get you to tell me the exact number, but I think we had at least 3 separate meetings in 3 different parts of the city with members of the community to gather information about their interest about budget items. This would have been late last spring. I don't know if Director Yuen is here and remembers that, but I do remember that we had some meetings, the Marina Community Center and some other places. There's always the opportunity to gather more input. So we're grateful for you being willing to share your input. So please keep sharing with us. We're all accessible by phone, by email, or for personal coffees. We'd set up and have coffees with people to get people's input. I know that we do have a budget forecast that shows that if we're not careful in the future, we will have an unbalanced budget, and that we need to be thinking carefully about kind of taking care of business, for lack of a better description, making sure that we have sufficient revenues, that we're controlling costs, we're being efficient in how we use our money. But I don't believe that we have a current 17 million budget deficit. I will look to either finance manager or city attorney.
Yes, that's correct. We currently have a balanced budget. That number is coming out of a forecast.
Yep. And so I think that's really important, because I think that your point with respect to forecasting is really well taken. It's something that I think everyone on this council is highly sensitive to, the fact that we have a number of unfunded liabilities that we need to address, and that we have been endeavoring to address one by one. And so I think that covers the basic topics of our 2 public commenters. And I will, do rest assured that we have introduced metrics. Each of the departments has metrics that they're working towards, and that they are now reporting to city council as well. That's kind of a new development. And I think it's one that at least aligns with your interest. With that in mind, we will go to item number 8, which is our public hearing. And I know that there's been extensive discussion about public safety, including this concept of pedestrian safety. We have Vision Zero as an objective, where we want to eliminate all fatalities involving pedestrians and those in cars, on bicycles, as well as serious injuries. That's the vision, that's the goal. One element of that we have considered in facilities and transportation, I think it's facilities and transportation, you'll tell us for sure, is addressing speed limits. So thank you very much for joining us today. And I think you are going to introduce the item, City Manager, and then see where we go.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and community. I do want to introduce this because I also want to introduce a new member of our leadership team this evening that you're going to have the opportunity to hear from and meet yourself. So city staff have listened to the council and the community call to lower speed limits across the city. I am pleased to announce that the Public Works and Police Department teams have worked together to propose reducing speed limits on 19 street segments tonight. This proposal is the result of extensive efforts by the engineering division in implementing traffic calming measures, strategically deploying radar feedback signs on posts and trailers, researching new legislation, and enhancing enforcement and visibility by the police department. Before we begin the public hearing, I want to make a special introduction. As you all know, my leadership philosophy emphasizes that success isn't measured by the projects you complete, but by the teams you cultivate and the legacy of talent and leadership you leave behind. This evening, we had the honor of swearing in our new police chief. I'm also excited to announce that we have successfully recruited a new city engineer. Last September, Nick Tom, who served as our city engineer for several years, was promoted to Assistant Public Works Director. Earlier this year, we initiated a search to backfill this position, and Public Works Director Marquises received an overwhelming response from many talented candidates. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce Jason Imai, a resident of San Leandro, who joins us from the city of Newark, and he will be presenting this item. Welcome.
Thank you, City Manager Roboselli. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and members of the community. My name is Jason Imai, and as shared by City Manager Roboselli, I am your new city engineer for the Public Works Engineering Division. Today actually marks 1 month that I've been with the city. Prior to joining City of San Leandro, I was, as mentioned previously, with the City of Newark for 7.5 years as both their assistant city engineer and then city engineer. And prior to that, I was with the cities of Dublin and the City of Fremont. As also mentioned, I am currently a resident of City of San Leandro and have been for the past 14 years with my wife, Christine, and my son, Jaron, who coincidentally is celebrating his 10th birthday tonight. So quick happy birthday shout out to him in case he's watching online at home. I am grateful for the chance to be part of San Leandro's team and excited about the opportunity to both serve and make a difference in the community in which I live. Now, tonight is the first reading of an ordinance that will approve updated citywide speed limits. And with me tonight, I have Senior Civil Engineer Nicole Castellano, who leads the Engineering Division's Transportation Section, our partners with the Police Department, and the city's consultant, Mr. Kenny Jung from W-Trans, who is also a City of San Leandro resident. So now at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jung, who will lead tonight's presentation.
So I'm going to start off by saying something that contradicts the city manager. We overachieved. It's actually not 19 street segments that got reduced. It's actually 30. So good evening tonight. So my name is Kenny. As Jason mentioned, I'm a San Leandro resident. And also, I am a licensed traffic engineer for the state of California. Tonight, we're talking about speed limits. All good news tonight, by the way. So I hope that you leave here satisfied. A little bit of background for speed limits in San Leandro. According to state law, they need to be recertified every about 7 years or so, or extended. And when you extend them, you can go 14 years from the date of the original certification. In San Leandro, the last time that this was done was 2017. And if you do the math, that was about 7 years ago. So we're at it again in 2024. And since then, there's been some changes in legislation. So our friends in Sacramento approved Assembly Bill 43 and Assembly Bill 1938, which basically rewrites a little bit of the vehicle code to give local agencies a little bit more flexibility in setting lower speed limits. And focus there has been for more urbanized areas, right? So a lot of those apply really well to San Leandro. Why are we doing this? Or why are we interested in lower speed limits? That's a very obvious answer to that is that, the faster a vehicle goes, the more potential for harm and damage there is. Add that to kind of the penchant for automakers to make larger vehicles now, and you have a pretty terrible combination for safety. So there's this growing public interest to, like the mayor said in the introduction, have a Vision Zero concept with more safety, more emphasis on safety, and lowering the speed limit, having slower speed limits is one of those pieces of the puzzle. So where you'll find this in the vehicle code is it's up on the slide here. I won't encourage you to read it, but the text is there. If you're interested, you can go and find it. These are the numbers, 627 and so forth. Basically, speed limits can be categorized into two categories. First category is prima facie, and that's Latin for upon first inspection, I think. And the second category is an engineering traffic survey. So prima facie speed limits, these are some of the common ones that we'll see. 50 miles an hour speed limit if you're near railroad tracks or an alley or immediately next to a school. 25 miles an hour is the most common one. This is senior centers, schools, and residential streets, right? Most streets in San Leandro fall into this category. And then the new one, this is introduced under AB 43. That's a business activity district. And if the street qualifies for that, you can set a 25 or 20 mile per hour speed limit. And then all of the details and the criteria right there on the screen. So if the street is not a prima facie street, then it's subject to what's called an engineering and traffic survey. And again, it's every 7 years, this has to be, this procedure has to take place or some form of it. This is a data-driven process. It must be done by a licensed engineer. And most importantly, the key takeaway here is the police need this to use radar to enforce speed limits. So without this certification, it really hinders the law enforcement's ability to go out, use radar, and enforce the speed limit. Right? It without possibly violating the state speed trap laws. Part of the process, what we do is we go out with the radar gun and we will survey the speeds that cars are actually going. And the basic concept there is that most people are reasonable. And so they're going to drive their cars in a reasonable manner. And if you go out there and you measure the speeds that they're actually going, that speed must also be reasonable for most of them. So two metrics that come off this exercise is the 85th percentile and pace speed. Right? The 85th percentile is basically the speed that 85% of the drivers are going at the speed or less. Right? The pace speed is the grouping where you have the most number of samples. Right? And that's illustrated here on this graph. I won't dig into it. This is actually the actual survey data for the Welling Boulevard. And when you go out there and you survey it, you see it usually forms this nice bell curve. I love looking at these. Beautiful. So usually the speed limit is set near the 85th percentile speed. And it's also usually set within the pace speed, right? So those two numbers are important. The process goes like this. We go out, we do the speed measurements, we identify the 85th percentile speed, and then we determine whether or not the street qualifies for a 5 mile/hour reduction, right? And then new, right? It's so new, we can't even apply it yet until the end of the month, is if that street is part of a safety corridor, we can apply yet another 5 mile reduction. Oh, one thing that's also key is at the bottom here, it says the vehicle code restricts the kind of the floor of how far down you can set a speed limit. You can't go more than 12.4 miles below the 85th percentile speed. So as I said earlier, we had looked at 67 street segments in San Leandro. 15 of those we could just set at 25 because we determined them to be prima facie. The remaining 52, of those 19, we were able to identify speed reductions. No speed increases. So wherever we were before, we were only lowering or staying the same. As far as those 52 segments, they are up for renewal in 7 years or extension. We could revisit that sooner than 7 years, but 7 years is when they expire. For the 15 prima facie streets, this is the list in the map. And these are the changes. Some of these, they all get to be set to 25 now. Some of them previously were 30 or 35. And so they were a number that dropped 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour. And then of the remaining 19 that saw reductions, this is the list and this is the map. And it's just a selection of 30s and 40s and 35s that dropped 5 miles an hour. If it wasn't on this list, then it saw no change in speed limit. So staff recommends adoption of this resolution so that we can all enjoy lower speed limits. Take your questions.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation. At this point in time, we'll go to council member clarifying questions before moving to our public hearing. So are there clarifying questions from council members? Okay, seeing no clarifying questions, I am going to open our public hearing at 8:03 and begin taking public comment on this item.
Mr. Mayor, we have one public comment online and none in person.
Please proceed.
Leo, you may unmute yourself.
Yes. I think that the city should stop fiddling with these speed limits. The city is doing nothing about the bikers on East 14 for 5 years. For 5 years, they have been parading on East 14, doing wheelies. I saw one bike 2 days ago. He was doing a wheelie at about 70 miles per hour. And they are there right in front of the police department, doing nothing. Then there are the jaywalking bumps in the middle of the street, stopping traffic. And the city council is engaged in trying to slow down the drivers on cars. That's really ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, it's criminal. And then we have gone through reduction of driving lanes and bus lanes and now speed limits. Get real, start fooling people, do your job, put out some tickets, jail or jaywalkers. That's what I have to do. Stop fiddling with the speed limit.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we have one public comment in person.
Please proceed.
Charles, go.
Thank you. I'll be quick again. First, thank you to the presenters, the staff. This was really informative, and I think I wish every single action item had that much information. My question to you is in terms of perhaps the lowering the speed limit. Was there any data about accidents and ticketing previously in the area? Because you had mentioned that this is to help the police. And in my observation, ticketing is enforcement is a big part. We have speed limits on my street, which is 25, and folks do fly through it. The other thing is, did you consider motorcycle? Because we have speed bumps and daily, I have several motorcycles just fly right through. You have the data for the pickup, which is, I would totally agree. I can provide you information on that. The third thing that I just want to request is, as a citizen and a resident, what can I do to help the police with the enforcement? What is it that I can do? Because I live with it. I see it. What is it that I can do? Provide you with pictures, or what do we need? That's within reason, because there are certain individuals that I see every day that are violating some of this, like the same motorcycle, it's a BMW, zipping through every day, right by all the speed bumps. And honestly, he's probably going like 55 to 60 on a 25 zone. So what is it that I can do to help? Thank you. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, there's no more public comment.
That wasn't, sorry, the microphone wasn't on, so online in the recording it's not noted. It was 8:07 when I closed the public meeting, public hearing. I'm now going to bring it to council members for discussion. I'll begin with council member Azevedo, please.
Hey, thank you for your presentation. I think this is important to lower the speed limits, but I do agree that we do need to enforce it. But there's 4 streets in my district on Spring Lake Drive. I saw the video after, but someone did get killed on there. Officer Gill was there. And so, yeah, they do speed on there. And on 143rd between East 14 and Washington, the fire trucks are trying to get out there and there's people speeding down there. So it's important for us to lower the speed there, but we do need enforcement and we're looking to help you guys get more. Thank you. That's all mine.
Okay, I'm turning to online to see if I've got council members with hands raised. Seeing none, I'll come back to I'm going to still go to Vice Mayor, and then I'll come back to Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Nice presentation, Kenny. And Kenny, as we heard, is a resident here in San Leandro Manor. So thank you, Kenny, for your support and great job in the presentation. I do support the drop in the speed limits, safety first. As we've heard from public commenters and just in general, we've seen the speeders everywhere. So I'm glad we're dropping the speed. And also want to show support to our police department, whatever steps are necessary to implement enforcement of these speed laws. So I want to show my support to the officers here and those that aren't here that are doing the work out there to help keep our cities safe. And hopefully this will be one extra tool for you. Thank you.
Going to Councilmember Viveros Walton, please.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work. Several of the streets here are also in my district and have been noted as high traffic, high speed area. So really appreciate the work. I would like to hear, and I'm sorry, I wasn't able to get the question before in, but in terms of the enforcement plan for change behavior, can someone include some of that information? What would that, how will the community know about the speed limit changes and to kind of change the behavior of folks going down these streets?
Hey, so we will start discussing the enforcement plan, get education, and then other levels of beyond it, just education. I'll start with city manager and let her allocate that.
I'm going to allocate first to the police chief and have her allocate.
There I am, sorry. Thank you. In the spirit of tonight's meeting, I would like to defer to Sergeant Gill, our traffic sergeant.
Is this on? Sergeant Gill, thank you for the time. Enforcement's really challenging when it comes to speed limits. As noted, there's 52 roadways, and obviously we're always fighting for staffing to enforce these roadways. With speed limits or any traffic enforcement, we always call it the 3 E's, the education, the engineering, and the enforcement component. The traffic division works very closely with the engineering department as far as getting the education part out there, which is changing the street signs, social media, just through conversations, emails, and the communication for that side. For the engineering component, our enforcement, we work with the partnership with the engineering division, and we have monthly meetings to discuss where all the problems are, which helps direct my partner and I where we're going to go out with the motorcycles, where I communicate with the other police officers where they need to be out. I see city council members out in the field, and we have conversations as well. So we're kind of directed by information and data. As far as the enforcement goes, we just try to stay following the trends where people are reporting it. I personally review all of the crash data for the whole city. So I get to see where the most frequent crashes are, and we try to concentrate based on what we call primary collision or primary crash factors. Like Luelling and Sedgman is a great example of that. The speed reductions is extremely important to us. One, because in the courtrooms, we get I don't want to say attacked, but that's usually what people want to know is when was the last speed survey. A lot of people don't understand what it means. They just think it's way out of a ticket, but it keeps us current and progressive with what is the 85th percentile, what the pacing zone is, allows us to enforce the actual speeds that are the most dangerous, which is like Luelling, I think 41 miles per hour is the excessive. If we're out there enforcing the speeds that are below 41, we're not really catching the most dangerous. So The speed limit reduction is an excellent component for us. One, it allows us an easier time to actually get out and do enforcement. When the roadways are fast, it's hard for us to get in and out of traffic to even catch up to these people. It becomes a hazard for us, but also to the public because we create chaos when we pull out on our motorcycles or with our patrol cars. I do want to talk about one of the other components. Someone talked about the jaywalking. Since COVID, really transportation's changed. We've seen a lot of more people out on foot. The laws regarding jaywalking have changed. Reducing the speed limit actually doesn't just help the motorists, but it gives the pedestrians an opportunity to react. The reactionary gap is larger, so now they can see that cars are moving slower. A lot of our crashes that we've seen that turn into fatalities, sometimes it's the pedestrian's fault, sometimes it's the motorist, but it's always because of speed, people misjudging. So with the speed limit reduction, it kind of gives us a little bit more time to gauge where these auto pedestrian crashes, auto bicycle crashes are. And it gives us a little bit more data to get out there. And again, when we go to court, having a good speed survey helps us actually get convictions, which hopefully affect the overall societal trends as far as following the law. Because if we can't enforce, that's one thing. But if people are going to court and defeating all these tickets, it's kind of a moot point because they go in, they beat the ticket, and then they don't really care what the enforcement component is. Right on time.
That's perfect. Other questions, Councilmember Villegas Walton? Okay, perfect. I'm going to go next to Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez, and thank you, Sergeant, for that information, and engineers for the presentation. I think, I've been going back and forth with Sheila with regards to, some speed limits with regards to, lowering other streets versus, what the current suggestion is. But I think, we have some issues with regards to enforcement. I mean, we are understaffed with our police department, and we're trying to work smarter, not harder, in a sense of, utilizing flock and other means to try to curb some criminal activity in that sense. But I think, what was presented here is something that is much needed. I think, we can try to focus some effort, but I think until we staff our police department, this is something that is going to be posted, but I don't know if it's if we have the means to fully enforce what is going on here. But I would like to see some language with regards to enforcement. I think this is Mayor, are we looking for a motion to move forward with the second reading? Because I do support the recommendations that staff is putting forth.
Thank you for your support. I do have a request here in the chamber to have someone that's going to move it here internally, if you don't mind. And then I can have you be the second.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
At this point in time, I think we've gone all the way through. Did you go already, Councilmember Blunt? So I'd like to go to you next. And I'll come back to Councilmember Azevedo when the time is right.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo the support that the other council members have expressed and say that in Alameda County, this last year was the deadliest for pedestrians. And so it is incredibly important that we slow down in general in every capacity and share the road. And so doing this, I think, is an important piece of that. I really appreciate and want to reiterate what was mentioned around the 3 E's with education, engineering, and enforcement. And so it's so important that we design the roads to make sure that we can actually drive at speeds that are tenable and are actually conducive to everybody sharing the road. I really want to give a shout out to Public Works Director Sheila Marquises as well, because there are, especially in my district, there was an opportunity to potentially raise some of the speed limits given the studies, and to really understand that that doesn't make sense for how the road is being used and for what the community truly needs, and thinking through where the collisions are. And so I know that the entire team has been working incredibly hard on it in lots of different ways that we are not aware of and that is not in the presentation. So I just want to give huge accolades out for that. And I cannot remember what else I was going to say, but I'm really glad this is happening.
So I will go around. I think everyone who has wanted to has spoken at least once. So just very quickly on a couple of thoughts that I have. I do think that speed kills. I was literally having this discussion yesterday. Today's Monday. Yesterday at a Father's Day celebration with someone that works for Public Works in Fremont. And they were saying it's incredibly scary to work along some of those boulevards in Fremont, like Paseo Padre. Because even though the posted speed limit might be 40 or 45, he said people are easily going 65 or 70. It's like being on a freeway. And so you can just say that that people, the workers, our city workers, we need to protect them. We need to protect mothers, children, fathers, kids that are with nobody. They're just riding their bikes. The opportunity to be seen increases literally exponentially as we drop speed because reaction time increases. So I think that that's particularly critical. I think Sergeant Gill? Sergeant Gill hit the nail on the head when he talked about it includes engineering, because we've done a lot of engineering work to create road diets, create that space for pedestrians, for bicyclists, and for others, and the education component. Because it's not, some people say, well, it's, you guys should increase your city coffers by issuing a bunch of tickets. The short answer is that we get almost no money from a ticket. It's almost more work than it's worth. So it's not a revenue raising mechanism, but we really need to find a way through education, through engineering, and ultimately through enforcement. So I think it really goes to all of those elements. And I'm glad to hear that we're thinking about each of those components. I want the residents to be aware that in Sacramento, we are advocating. We've advocated through ACTC. So when I sit on ACTC, we've advocated, I think BACMed also took a position on speed enforcement, because we know that cars that move faster consume more gasoline, they produce more pollution. And so this concept of it's environmentally safer, it's safer for individuals, and we want enforcement through some automated means also. But I think we could have officers, right now, we could have officers pretty much on almost every street in San Leandro, neighborhood streets, arterials, collectors, and we could catch speeders. So we need to make that transition so that we're protecting more individuals and having our city be safer. And if we can bring technology to bear on that, much like we brought Flock to help us catch folks in stolen cars, folks intent on conducting criminal activity in our city, I think that we're going to be better off. And lastly, I'll leave us with this thought that, in 1955 or 1960, when we were a city of, I don't know, maybe 15,000 people or something like that. We're just a fundamentally different city. Now we're this kind of urban suburban mix where folks want to have active transportation. And we're pursuing literally tens of millions of dollars in grants to support active transportation, crosstown corridors, through ACTC as a allocator of federal funds, but we're even going directly to the federal government to pursue money. So I think it's a different world today in a city of 90,000 people, in a city that will get more dense as more and more people from throughout the world move to the San Francisco Bay Area. I know at this point in time, we have interest from one of our council members to be the person that moves this motion. So I'll come back to you, Councilmember Azevedo.
Okay, I have one question real quick. So, question, so if we pass this motion, the first reading and the second reading, when does this go into effect? Speed limit changes.
We will be going to council for the second reading on July 1st, and will go into effect shortly thereafter.
Okay. So the day after, or on August 1st, or the day? Okay.
As soon as we get the approved
Okay, so
resolution.
pass. Okay.
So by law, I think that the answer might be 30 days. Let's confirm with council.
Ordinance will go into effect 30 days.
Okay, 30 days after. All right, yes, and I want to move this item.
Okay. So in terms of, so we've got a motion by Councilmember Azevedo. Do we have a second?
Second by Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you. I've got a motion by Councilmember Azevedo, a second for Councilmember Aguilar. Please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilar, yes. Councilmember Baloo is absent. Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Aye.
Councilmember Aguilar, yes. Councilmember Azevedo, yes. Councilmember Bowen, yes. Councilmember Viveros Walton, yes. Vice Mayor Simon, yes. Mayor Gonzalez, yes. Motion passes 6-0-1 with Councilmember Baloo absent.
Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to move to item 13 on our agenda, and this is where we'll take the personal liberty to take a moment and thank our outgoing city manager. And I would like to offer a few words. I think that we've got a city manager who has served us for the last 3+ years, who has brought, as described by one of our council members, a superpower to go and recruit, to find the talent. And when we talk about a great city in terms of the delivery of services, we always talk about the people, the process, the technology that we have here. But number one is always people. So I think as a city council, we're grateful for her ability to recruit fantastic talent. And you've made an impact. You've changed the number of people, the quality of people, the dedication of people. It's shown in the employment survey scores. And so we always start with people. Another attribute that she has brought that's just really blown me away in terms of what the data show is that oftentimes we talk about DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But one of the things that was stunning to me was that when we looked at the high quality staff that we have, it is truly diverse talent. It's not just diverse talent from a lip service perspective, from, hey, we should build a diverse team of old and young and folks of different ethnicities and different language skills and all that. It's truly diverse talent. And so like I want to highlight, it's not talk, but it's action. That's where you see the delivery. I think the third thing that I'd like to highlight is that she's made some very difficult decisions. Some very difficult decisions that involved opening up some transparency around some challenges that we faced as a city. The exposure to some significant unfunded liabilities. And the request that staff speak to her openly and honestly and tell her, don't pull any punches. Tell me the truth. I can work with the truth. I don't have to figure out the truth if you just tell me the truth. And there are some places where it's been a painful truth to uncover that there are some unfunded liabilities that, we haven't been collecting the money that we need to collect. And she has been working systematically through each of the departments and the budgetary items to drive significant change in her time. And that's not always popular. But despite that, she has remained committed to doing the right thing the right way. And so today, I'm going to give you some flowers. But even more importantly, I think as a sign of how much we want to honor and respect you, today we will adjourn our meeting in your honor. It is 8:27.